tuba. Yeah, exactly. I have an announcement sheet today. Yay! So birthdays this week. On the 28th, we have Mike Brink and Forrest Younger. Happy birthday. What's your birthday? 54th anniversary of his 39th birthday. Wow. And and Octavio Durant is also around 28th. There's a lot of birthdays there. And on the 29th is Jill Durant. And on August 1st is Mary Everett. And baptismal birthdays all happened on August the 1st. Wendy Abbott, Derek Durant, Mary Everett, Sid McDonald, and Brendan McCoy. And anniversaries this week. On the 1st is Greg and Dina Braun. And on August 2nd is Pastor and Bianca Wilkes. So wish them a happy anniversary when they get back. And Missy has an announcement to share.
Okay, can I get all the youth in First Communion and higher to stand up? Okay, we've had a very, very busy quarter with events and servant work, and we want to recognize the youth for this quarter for all their service and participation and attendance. Today they're going to receive another pin for their name badge, and I'm not going to call you guys one by one, but all their stuff is on the second to last page in the newsletter, and then it'll be on the bulletin board. So after I'm done, if you guys look at your pins. So I wanted to recognize them. I also wanted to recognize Uriah, Rowan, and Tristan. I was told that there wasn't anybody here last week for sound, audio, and slides, and those three stepped up and went upstairs and made it possible so that people at home could watch service. And Tristan was acolyte and worked upstairs, so he was running up and down the stairs through the entire service. So I wanted to thank them and recognize them for doing that. And good job today too. You guys are getting it. So you guys want to get your pins. And then Willow. Hold on, no, it's all right. As you all know, June 18th at around 1 a.m., Camp Luther-Homa was hit with an EF1 tornado. Willow was at the camp when that hit. And so she has a spotlight page of her experience, and she was going to read it and tell you guys about her experience, and then if you guys had any questions or anything, she was going to answer them for you guys.
Yeah. All right, there we go. Okay. All right. Before we went to bed, our Before we went to bed, our counselor said there was most likely a storm coming. There shouldn't be anything really major. I honestly didn't think much of it because I used it with the sound machine anyways. Eventually, sometime around like 1 a.m.-ish, there was loud banging on our door. And once it opened, there was one of the camp support staff shouted, "Everybody get up, go, go, go." I thought it was a joke at first, until I looked outside the cabin door. The wind was very loud. I could hear a siren from far distance. Branches were flying everywhere. I got my plush bunny and my water bottle. I ran out there. They ended up putting us into the bathroom storage. I was in the back since I was fast to get there. There ended up being not enough room for everybody, so everyone else ended up being sent to the girls' restroom. I was terrified. I remained quiet. I was silently praying that everything was going to be okay. A few minutes later, one of the counselors ended up passing out. Luckily, another came to make sure that she was all right. The back door wouldn't stay closed, so we got another counselor to keep it closed. Eventually, the storm passed over us, so we got sent back to our cabins to sleep again. Luckily, I did end up falling asleep. In the morning, we were out of power. Turns out a tree hit the power line, and they had a backup generator, so we still had breakfast. Cafeteria A had it worse than my cafeteria. We had to take a completely separate path to the dining hall because the normal one was filled with uprooted trees. Anyway. After breakfast, they cleaned off the deck so we could have an opening. After singing and dancing, they sent us back to our cabin to pack our bags and wait for our parents to pick us up. A couple hours later, my mom came. I ran and hugged her. We praised God for keeping me safe. Then we went home. I'm glad that God was watching over me.
Thank you, Willow. And then lastly, for the youth, the youth like to get very, very involved with our board. And they wanted to contribute to the newsletter. So on the very last page, they've all contributed. They've got their name marked, and then there's a letter next to their name, and you can match the letter to the very bottom, and it points out what they did. I wanted to point out that Solomon and Vivian they were told to take a picture of anything they wanted and to put it with a Bible verse. They did not communicate with each other at all, but they both picked the same Bible verse and took pictures of the same, of a flower. I thought that was really neat, of all the Bible verses. And if the youth will pay attention, there's a contest with prizes. So, anyways, that is all.
Okay, let me have a quick prayer, and then we'll dismiss everyone to their classes. Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for all of the blessings that you give us, and during this hour here, we remember one of the great blessings you have given us, the gift of your word. And I thank you that we live in a place where we can gather together and study your word, and I pray that you will speak to us on this day, that you will strengthen us for the days ahead until we meet back again next week. We pray in Jesus' name, amen. Any of you guys remember those old Far Side cartoons? Yeah, a lot of you do. Wow, I found myself living one today. There's one that I remember where there's this orchestra playing and a guy with cymbals, and he's here and saying, "I won't mess up again. I won't mess up again. I won't mess up again." And the caption was, "Carl messes up." And so last week, I did the fatal mistake that a pastor can make is during the benediction, it's written down, but it's a different version than the way that I say it. And I had one eye on here and then I stumbled right over it. And so today, I was like, I'm not going to mess up again. I'm not going to mess up again. And I messed up. That was, yeah. Okay, last week, we made it through the end of Nahum chapter 1, And interesting FYI here for you is if we were studying this in the Hebrew Bible, the last verse is actually the beginning of chapter 2 in the Hebrew Bible. So take a look at that last verse, verse 15, where it says, "Behold, upon the mountains the feet of him who brings good news, who publishes peace. Keep your feasts, O Judah, fulfill your vows, for never again shall the worthless pass through you. He is utterly cut off." And Nahum. Yeah. So what do you guys think? Is that a great way to start a chapter? Yeah.
Excuse me, Pastor, what book are you in?
Nahum.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're killing Assyrians here today. We're gonna finish it up. I hope, because I'm not back here next week. Okay, well, anyway, that's something that's interesting to think about, where that verse belongs. See, that's what I like to do in my free time. When if you ever wonder, when you look at, you'll see notes in your Bible saying that, oh, this was here and this was there, and if you ever wonder how those changes happen, usually you can go back and blame the Greeks. Because what they did was they took the Hebrew Bible and translated it into Greek, and they're responsible for changing so much. Like, instead of having 1st and 2nd Samuel that we're accustomed to, it was just Samuel. It was just Kings. All of the minor prophets were together in one book called the 12. And so I blame them for a lot of things when they did that. They should have just kept their hands out of it. But anyway, let's turn our attention now to, in the English Bible, chapter 2, and verse 1. Oh, I had a few slides here to share. I pulled up a different map. This shows, so the green in its entirety is the extent of the Assyrian Empire right before it fell. So it encompassed a great deal of the world at that time. Assyria was the first of these big empires that's going to come up. So we're going to have Assyria, and we're going to have Babylon, and then we're going to have Persia, and then we're going to have Greek, and then finally the Romans. And each one of them extends the territory. But the Assyrians were the first one, and they were able to bring all these things together that normally would have been separate, like Babylon or Sumer. You have Assyria. You see below Nineveh is Ashur. That used to be the capital of the Assyrian Empire, but Nineveh was a more defensible type of setup. So they moved the capital, and then all the way to include a good chunk of Egypt there as well. And so they were the first ones to do it. And then I could not find a decent map on this, but this is the same one I showed last week. But this shows the fortified part of Nineveh. And in our readings today, what we're going to find here is that Nineveh was much larger than just that. There were what we would call like suburbs or neighborhoods that surrounded Nineveh outside of the walls. Because we're going to have a mention here of what's going on out in the streets away from the walls of Nineveh. Okay, so let's look at verse 1 here. in chapter 2. The scatterer has come up against you. Man the ramparts, watch the road, dress for battle, collect all your strength. Now the scatterer is not named. If you had to guess, who would it be? It's the Lord. Yeah, here in the Old Testament, when you come across the scatterer, like it's almost always going to be the Lord, because He's the scatterer of nations. You know, He's the one who renders judgment and pulls down the proud and everything. In the New Testament, when you run across the scatterer, it's usually a farmer. So, yeah, it's kind of joking. There's a big difference. But yeah, so this is a reference to to Yahweh, the Lord. He is going to go and now He's going to scatter Nineveh. They're not going to be that strong, proud city that they were. And he's against them. Now, this is the Lord talking to the most powerful nation in the history of the world up to this point. Man the ramparts, watch the road, dress for battle, collect all your strength. How is that going to go for them when it's the Lord who is against them? It's not going to go well, is it? No. Hey, verse 2. For the Lord is restoring the majesty of Jacob as the majesty of Israel. For plunderers have plundered them and ruined their branches. Now, a lot of times when you see Jacob mentioned like that, and it kind of goes along the same way when you see mention of like Ephraim and things like that. What do you think they're talking? Nahum is talking about with the Jacob reference. But at this point in time, the northern kingdom is gone, so who's left? It's Judah there. And so, usually Jacob will, more often than not, is the entire country, all of the tribes together would be the reference. But now we only have what's left, and that's Judah. And not often do you see Judah be the reference here for Jacob. And so what verse 2 is telling us is that God is going to restore Judah. Now at this point in time, Judah, let me go back to that other map. And Judah, it looks like it's within the territory of the Assyrian Empire. Now from Judah's perspective, they were still kind of independent, but they were paying tribute to Assyria. If you talk to Ashurbanipal, he would have said, no, Judah is one of our territories. So they didn't quite see eye to eye on that. I think the Assyrian king probably had a better point, because if you're there having to pay tribute and otherwise to keep them from coming in and conquering you, you're not really independent. And so that's where things were with Judah. Now God is going to restore Judah, not by causing them to grow, not by causing them to become powerful. He's going to restore them by eliminating Nineveh. And so basically this is a promise to them. Let's look at verses 3 and 4. The shield of his mighty men is red. His soldiers are clothed in scarlet. The chariots come with flashing metal on the day he musters them. The cypress spears are brandished. The chariots race madly through the streets. They rush to and fro through the squares. They gleam like torches. They dart like lightning. So there is a debate here as to who is he in these two verses. Debate amongst the scholars. I guess, if you want to sell books, you have to debate things like that. What are the possibilities of who he is? Could be the king of Nineveh. Could be the scatterer. You guys can answer questions. I'm just saying, there are no grades. Yeah.
Didn't realize you were filming.
So what does it mean if you have a red shield?
That's a good question.
There's blood on it, right? Yeah. Are you on the losing end of the battle or the winning end of the battle? If you got red all over you. What's that? Winning, right? Because it's on your shield. If it's other places, it's less good for you. This is the one who's doing the attacking is winning because their shields are red. And who are God's soldiers here? Yeah, well, no, they're worthless at this time here, those guys. It's the Babylonians and the Medes. So God is using them to enact judgment on Assyria. So that's why they get the reference here of being the Lord's soldiers. Even though they're not people of God, he's using them anyway. And they're the ones, their shields are red. So they're winning the battle. Now, with the warriors being clad in red, that mentioned, nobody knows really for sure what that is a reference to. Because if you're stained with blood, on your clothing, it's usually because you have pretty bad wounds that you're on the losing end of the battle. But this is clearly whoever it is on the winning end of the battle. So there's a lot of scholars who have pointed out that the army of Cyrus, he would clad them in purple, his elite troops, so that way they're easily identified. And so when he calls them into battle, the enemy is all, they're wearing purple. It's their best. That are coming against us, and then they get scared, and they don't, they kind of run away, is what happens here. Now the problem with that, there's a lot of scholars who try to use that concept here in this case to answer this question as to who are these guys. And the problem with it is that Cyrus doesn't come along for another 100 years. So that practice, if it was being used at this time, we have lost the history of it. So we're not real sure what is going on. And this is one of the few times where Luther even weighs in. No, Luther weighs in on everything. This is not one of the few times. This is one of the few times Luther weighs in on something with very few words. Because normally he goes on a rant about everything, and it's about the Pope, and it's Luther, right? So Luther, when he translates this, he just says his army looks purple and leaves it there. So yeah, we don't know what's going on, but clearly there is something distinctive about these soldiers here. Whether it's one of the groups who is joining, like with the Medes or something like that, who knows? If we figure it out, we can sell books. Sound good? Okay, I'm a lot more excited about that than you do. So chariots rushing about. That sounds cool, doesn't it? And what we're seeing there is the area outside of the walls. So imagine a grid of roads. And if you're up on the walls in Nineveh and you're looking down, you're seeing these chariots just race back and forth on the streets. Those squares that are being referenced to, those aren't like, the center of city squares. These are what they call the intersections of roads coming together. And so you've got all these chariots going about, and they're gleaming in the sunlight. Would you be terrified if you were on the wall of Nineveh seeing that? Because all of a sudden you look down, what happened to your city? It's gone. The enemy has it. And they look quite formidable to go up against them. Okay, and so we have the battle here is ongoing in verse 5. He remembers his officers. They stumble as they go. They hasten to the wall. The siege tower is set up. So they're looking at this overwhelming force that has their way in the suburbs outside of the walls, and now they're starting to muster up against the walls. They got the siege engines in place. The river gates are open. The palace melts away. Its mistress is stripped. She is carried off. Her slave girls lamenting, moaning like doves, and beating their breasts. So they opened up the river gates, because you kind of need a source of water. But what the Babylonians and Medes did, as I had mentioned last week, was what they dammed up the Tigris a little bit upstream and then released it. And the rush of water went in and knocked down the walls. And that allowed all this panic then to come up inside the walled part of the city. That's what is going on in verses 6 and 7. And then in verses 8 and 9, Nineveh is like a pool whose waters run away. Halt, halt, they cry, but none turns back. Plunder the silver, plunder the gold. There is no end of the treasure or of the wealth of all precious things. So the plunderers are being plundered. Assyria had a reputation for just taking and taking and taking. And they plundered the 3 most wealthy cities at the time. Those being Babylon and Thebes and Susa. So those were very rich cities, and Assyria had gone in and basically plundered everything out of those cities. And where is it now? It's in Nineveh. And the Babylonians and Medes are helping themselves to it. Any questions so far? I know they should turn this into a movie, right? It would be exciting. Depends on which side you're on. That is correct. All right, verse 10. Desolate, desolation and ruin. Hearts melt and knees tremble. Anguish is in all loins. All faces grow pale. Well, that doesn't sound good, does it? No, this is basically anybody who's left there in Nineveh, they're shaking out of terror because of what's happening. They don't control they don't control anything now at this point. The walls have been breached. They don't have reinforcements coming. They don't have any help on the way. They're alone, having to face, all those terrifying-looking chariots driving all these. Just imagine if you jump over the wall. Okay, you couldn't have jumped over the wall, but you got let down over the wall and tried to run away. What's going to happen? You're going to get cut down. It was terrifying to be there. Verse 11, where is the lion's den, the feeding place of the young lions, where the lion and lioness went, where his cubs were, with none to disturb? The lion tore enough for his cubs and strangled prey for his lionesses. He filled his caves with prey and his dens with torn flesh. What is that all about? What's that? Yeah. Remember how I was showing you last week those images of Ashurbanipal fighting the lions? Yeah, there's a bunch of images of the Assyrian kings doing this because that's how you show your power. But not only that, they also represented themselves as lions. And so this is a knock against them because the lion was strong and powerful and fast. And, so here's, I was surprised at what a lack of images that I could find to show. So I guess it must have come from writings more of them representing themselves as lions, but this is one of them. See, this is, I think this might have been King of Sheridan. He's up there, he's like a winged lion, so he's powerful and fast. King Sennacherib would write about himself as being a prowling lion who goes in against his adversaries. So this was very common. So these verses right here, this is a knock against the kings of Syria. Here, where's your home now? How are you going to provide for your young ones? You're not gonna do that anymore. And essentially, this is how is the lion feeding his cubs? From all of the plunder that they have, that they had accumulated all these years. And so now, where's your plunder? It's gone.
Is that what they were talking about earlier when they say ruin their branches? What's that reference?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. verse was that?
Oh, earlier, 2.
Yeah, that was the glory of God's people, Judah, at that time, was cut short, and the Lord is blaming Assyria for that.
I was just trying, just wondering
Mhm.
what was about, like, ruining the branches, like, what was.
Yeah, this is a good observation. Yeah, exactly. You guys are so quiet, it's really creepy. I'm just saying. Okay, the last verse of the chapter. Behold, I am against you, declares the Lord of hosts, and I will burn your chariots in smoke, and the sword shall devour your young lions. I will cut off your prey from the earth, and the voice of your messengers shall no longer be heard. Well, that puts an exclamation point on this, doesn't it? Yeah, you better watch out. If the Lord ever comes along and says, behold, I'm against you, you better duck, because it's coming. And the thing is, what the Lord is doing, it sounds bad, doesn't it? All these things here that's happening to these guys in Nineveh, it sounds pretty bad. It's a very horrific destruction, and that is happening, but the Lord is paying Assyria back for everything that they did to the world. So he's given it back to them.
From the history that I've studied, it just seems like this is another bloody battle. It just seems from one to another, they're all battling each other. Some of them I met, it seems the Lord is directing them.
Yeah. Well, that's what's happening in this case. The Lord is he's basically responsible for sending the Babylonians and the Medes and I think the Lydians joined in. There's a bunch of smaller countries that kind of jumped on this because Assyria, being the most powerful nation in the world, was also the most hated because they were particularly cruel. I mean, very. Because if we look into chapter 3 here, for example, let's look at the first 4 verses. Woe to the bloody city, all full of lies and plunder, no end to the prey. Well, actually, I lied. Let's just stop at that first verse. So God's calling them a bloody city, and there's no end. How does he say it there? No end to the prey. You saw that map. They went after everyone and everything. They just took and took and took. And so if you're going to describe someone as a bloody city, what kind of things would they be doing to get that that title? Yeah. Well, they were quite organized doing it. But yeah. So kings at this time, if you're going to go conquer somebody, and so they're like a less powerful city that you were after, you would come up and circle this. Well, sometimes you would send a messenger first. say, we're heading your way. Give up and we'll take it easy on you. And, you know, you know how Jesus in that one parable would talk about, you know, if you're going to go to war, you got to weigh whether you're going to be successful or not. And these guys really did that. And so, you know, you send a messenger saying, hey, if you just give up, it's going to go okay for you. And if they don't give up, well, you got to bring your troops up. And if they see your troops outside of the gate, you give them another chance. Give up now, then we're only going to do a little damage. If you make him go and put you under siege and spend like 2 or 3 years before they break in, the attacker is hopping mad at this time. You know, by this point. Oh yeah, and they would just wreak havoc throughout the city if they make them, you know, expend all those resources and time and everything else. Because he's looking at, hey, you know what? I could have been 5 more cities down the way there, and then he gets mad. So, but the Nineveh kings, the Assyrian kings, they took it to a next level here. If there were leaders who did not surrender, and they had to go in and conquer them, they were often skinned alive or impaled on sharpened posts. That's not any way to treat another king, right? Well, we didn't do that. Officers in opposing armies who dared to fight against Assyria, well, they often had their limbs cut off, and their tongues cut out, and their teeth pulled out, and their eyes gouged out. Or if they're lucky, their heads cut off, I guess. Yeah. And then the Assyrians would want to make a statement about this, so everything that they cut off, they would stack up nice and neat and orderly as a message for anybody else who might want to go against them. So, you know, anybody coming along and you see all these body parts everywhere, and they did worse things than this even here. There were sometimes entire populations of cities were burned to death. Not just the soldiers, everybody, men, women, and children. And you know, when you get into the more modern times, usually when there's these atrocities like this that happen, you know, oftentimes they're covered up in a way because, oh, you know, we did that. Yeah, we don't want to, you know, take things too far. The Assyrians boasted about it. Yeah, they took great pride in all of the things that they did. And they're also full of lies. They had a reputation of not telling the truth in order to get someone to surrender. So you tell the opposing king, hey, just, yeah, go ahead and give up now, and I'll let you go live in your summer palace. And then next thing you know, nope, you've got the king, he's had an owl punctured through his jaw, and they tied him to a dog chain and put him in a cage outside of his own city. That's the Assyrian Empire that the Lord is going against. One of the examples of these lies here that they tell, we have it in 2 Kings verses 18. You guys want to take a look at that? So this is 2 Kings verses 18, verses 28 to 31. Okay, so this is where Judah is being threatened, and then we have Rabshakeh, who is one of the folks who are allied with the Assyrians. Rabshakeh stood and called out in a loud voice in the language of Judah, "Hear the word of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus says the king, do not let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you out of my hand. Do not let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord by saying, the Lord will surely deliver us, and this city will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Do not listen to Hezekiah, for thus says the king of Assyria, make your peace with me, come out to me, then each one of you will eat of his own vine, and each one of his own fig tree, and each one of you will drink the water of his own cistern." That was not the truth. No, the king would have taken everybody, had they given up, and relocated somewhere that was probably not a nice place to live, at best. Or he would have wiped them all out. He was fully capable of doing that as well. But you kind of see what